I'm Mike of Mike and Allie's Vintage eBay and Etsy stores, back with you today to take a look at some more of the neat things that we've got in our eBay and Etsy stores. We've got some books, got some toys, got some slide trays, music, all kinds of interesting things we're going to look at over the next few minutes here. I've got links down below to both stores. Also, make sure you take a quick second and hit subscribe so you'll be able to keep up to date with all the videos that we send out each and every week. Let's get started. We'll start with this little fella right here. A 1/25th scale Gale skid steer loader. And of course, if you're a farmer or construction worker, you know all about these little pieces of machinery in their full life form. They are quite handy, to say the least, for cleaning out livestock pens or moving dirt and earth. And this is a little toy version. Doesn't look like it's probably ever been played with. Probably was bought and just used as a display for a while. It's a 1/25th scale, and it's a nice little heavy piece of machinery too. Use it as a paperweight if nothing else. You like Star Trek? I got a lot of 5 Star Trek books here. They're in good condition. They're Star Trek Next Generation. Also, I think at least one of them is the original Star Trek characters. They do have somebody's name written on them, previous owner, but as far as that goes, that's about the only thing. A little bit of wear on some of the covers. The pages are in good shape, very little yellowing. So if you like Star Trek, you collect these books, you want to check those out in our eBay. I don't think I have them in the Etsy store. I think those are just in the eBay store. Now, remember this? The Avengers? Not the movie from just a few years ago, but the TV show from back in the 1960s. It was a British show, and it was on BBC over in Great Britain. Eventually, it was brought over here to the United States as a part of ABC and was on their schedule for several years. Patrick Macnee and Diana Rigg, that's the two most famous stars. There were a couple of other girls on besides Diana, but she's the one that everybody remembers. And those are the two characters that are used in this particular book here. I think this is from about 1967 or 1968. And that's in both of our eBay and our Etsy stores. Got quite a few slide trays or slide carousels, including a couple of these. These are Honeywell's, and these are circular trays. They're similar to the Kodaks and the GAF Sawyers, but they won't work in either one of them. You have to have a Honeywell projector for these to work. I don't know how many of the Honeywells are out there, but if you've got one, you're looking for a couple of carousels, we've got 2. Also got several of the ones that fit the Sawyers and the GAF style slide projectors too. Got a couple of the Kodak ones as well, and you can find all of that in our eBay store. And if you're like a lot of us who have taken slides over the years, you may have more pictures than you do trays to hold them in. And we have these little Kodak Ready files that you can store extra slides in. I've got 3 different lots of them. One lot is complete, where they have all 4 of the little dividers and have the index up here. The other 2 lots, I think one of them is missing all of the dividers, or at least part of the dividers, and I think 1 or 2 of them may be missing their indexes as well. Again, if you go over to our eBay store and in the category where they're at, you'll find them in there, and have all the details about them in each individual page. Here's another book you might find interesting. This is called The Gentleman from Indianapolis. It is a book about Booth Tarkington. No relation to Fran, not that I know of at least. In fact, I think their names are even spelled differently. But I got to look in here to tell you what year this is from. About 1921. That's when the book was first published. I don't know if this is a 1921 edition or not. But the book is in good shape. Just a little bit of yellowing, and its cover has a couple of spots on it, but nothing is going to affect its readability. It's actually a solid book for its age, and really good condition for its age as well. Got a Gemini Star Hat here. I think this is from the 1980s, maybe late 70s. It's got the little double clickers on the back here. And I think that was a trucking company, if I'm not mistaken. If you know for sure, you can always leave a comment down below. Let me know. But definitely a vintage hat. It's been around for a while, and don't think it's been worn very often. Looks like real good condition for its age. Let's see what we got over here. Dino. Still sealed. DVDs. Best of the Dean Martin Variety Show. Not the complete set, unfortunately, but these are volumes 4, 6, 7, 8, and 9. One of the great TV shows of all time. Some of the guests that you'll see on these include Ed Sullivan, Raquel Welch, Engelbert Humperdinck. You also see Jack Benny, of course, Joey Bishop, Frank Sinatra, I think maybe in here somewhere. I can't say that for 100% certainty. Roy Rogers is on this one, as is Bill Cosby. He's just been in the news here very recently. So, yeah, there you go. If you're like me, a big fan of Dean Martin, that's something you definitely want to check out. More books. Do you like Dan J. Marlowe books? I've got a lot of 3 of them right here. I was selling them all together, paperbacks. These are all around 1970, I think. Yeah, late 60s, maybe 68, 69, 70 when these were all published. And they're all in pretty good shape, especially for paperbacks that are 50 plus years old. I mean, they've held up really well, been taken well care of. Here's one if you're into jazz and blues. This is a CD that was issued several years ago. Billie Holiday, Lady in Satin. And these, I think, are the last recordings that she made before she passed away in 1959. A lot of tragic stories in music history of various artists whose lives were cut short for one reason or another, be it accidents or drugs or alcohol or other reasons. And unfortunately, she's part of that group. So, but yeah, if you don't know her story, definitely go check it out. And if you don't know her music, definitely go check it out too. And if you're into blues and jazz, you probably do. But if you don't, she's worth checking into, learning more about. I got a lot of 4 country music CDs. I actually got 2 or 3 lots of country music CDs. This particular one here is a lot of 4. It has 2 of Reba McEntire's CDs, What If It's You and Read My Mind, and also Hank Williams Jr.'s Greatest Hits, his hits of the early 1980s. I actually have that one on vinyl, believe it or not. Actually, I have a lot of vinyl. And Keith Whitley's Greatest Hits. It has all the hits that he had. Speaking of artists we were just talking about whose careers were tragically cut short for one reason or another, Keith is another one that falls into that category. And what a career he would have had, in my opinion, if he had not died so young. I mean, he was on the cusp of the level of popularity that Randy Travis and Garth Brooks and Alan Jackson and those guys enjoyed. So, you know, we'll never know, but it would have been an interesting decade in the 1990s if he had survived and continued recording. Do you like square dance music? Or you do some square dancing? We have got 6 lots of Square Dance 45s. Each lot has 22 records in it. And all the records have call sheets with them. And what you'll also notice with the records, one side will have a caller giving the calls, and then the flip side will be the instrumental version. So then if you're a caller, you just kind of follow along here with the instrumental side. Most of the songs are based off of popular country and pop songs of the past, I'd say, 50, 60, 70 years. Most of the records are 70s, 80s, 90s era. There might be a few mixed in that are early 2000s, but for the most part, 80s and 90s and some 70s. I've got 6 lots of them listed right now. I've got several more that have not been listed yet that we'll be getting those on here in the coming weeks. if I can get him over here without knocking him over. There we go. This is an interesting album. Albums were first introduced around 1948. Columbia Records came out with them, and they were generally 10-inch size, same size as a 78. And of course, eventually they went to the 12-inch size that we're more familiar with in this day and age. This one is a 10-inch album of Red Nichols and his 5 pennies. Red was a jazz pioneer from back in the 20s and early 1930s, and these are recordings that come from that era. A lot of famous band members and band leaders in later years were a part of Red Nichols' band, and it's got some good music on it, very enjoyable, and this is a collectible album. It's in very good shape. I have played it, and the record is clean, very little noise on it. Sounds great. I mean, this album's pushing 70 years old, and it sounds excellent. Speaking of jazz, I'm not a big jazz person. There's a few here and there I like. I'm mostly a classic country and oldies type listener, but I do like George Shearing. Like his music a lot. And this is one of his better albums, although I'm not sure he ever had a bad album. He's kind of like Flatt and Scruggs. I always said their weakest album was stronger than many other artists' best albums, and I think George probably falls into that same category in the jazz realm and easy listening realm as well. He's really kind of a mix of both jazz and easy listening. This one is called Velvet Carpet, and this is one we have in our eBay store. If you've never heard George's music, highly recommended. This one is still sealed. Back to the world of country music, Gene Shepard, Slippin' Away. This album, 1973, that was her comeback hit. She had been on Capitol Records in the 50s and 60s and had kind of faded in the early 70s, left them, joined United Artists. They put out the song Slippin' Away, became a huge hit. And this is the album. It features that as well as the follow-up single, Come On Phone, which didn't do nearly as well as Slippin' Away. Gene, of course, passed away a couple of years ago, member of the Country Music Hall of Fame, longtime member of the Grand Ole Opry, and one of my favorite female vocalists in the realm of country music. Now back to jazz we go here. Stan Kenton, another legend in that type of music, and again, much like George Shearing, an artist in jazz that I actually really enjoy listening to. I haven't listened to as much of his as I have of Shearing's, but the ones I have listened to, I like very much, including that album right there. And again, you know, it's in really good condition. There might be a slight pop or crackle here and there, but for the most part, very clean. And if you're looking for one to digitize and you've got that software that cuts out the noise, yeah, you won't have to do much with that one. And here I got a lot of 5 albums from Eddie Arnold. Eddie's probably the second artist that I ever took notice of as a young child, right behind Dean Martin. Grew up listening to Eddie's music a lot, still listen to it a lot to this very day. We've got the Ever-Lovin' World of Eddie Arnold, features his hit Here Comes Heaven. The Warmth of Eddie, this was 1970, I think, 69, right around there. Has an interesting cover of the Bee Gees song I Started a Joke. The Best of Eddie Arnold, this has sold a ton of records over the past 50 plus years. Has many of his biggest hits on it. Make the World Go Away, What's He Doing in My World. Newer re-recordings of his early hits like Bouquet of Roses and Any Time on here as well. Cattle Call as well. Now, this is one of those budget albums that RCA used to put on their Camden label. I'm Throwing Rice and other favorites by Eddie. Now, this one also came out in the mid-60s, but the recordings themselves are mainly early 50s to late 50s in era, but it does have a few of his hits from that time period. Not the really huge ones other than the title cut, but there are songs like Gonna Find Me a Bluebird and This Is the Thanks I Get, a couple of Eddie Arnold hits from back in the 50s. And probably his most famous album that's not called the best of, My World. That did come out in 1965. Again, sold a bunch of copies. And that's the lot of 5 Eddie Arnold albums that we've got for sale in our eBay store. Another thing we've got a lot of, not say a lot of, but quite a few of, are the Chilton's or Haynes automotive manuals. I know we've got one for Toyota Corolla, and I've got a couple, I think, for Chevrolets. I've got one for Ford Probes and Mazda 626s of the late 90s. And I've got this one right here. This is for Ford Probes from 1989 through 1992. Yeah, they're getting to that age now where people are starting to get them and maybe restore them a little bit, or, you know, it kind of brings back memories. You think about it, that's been 30 years now. I mean, that's my era. Sports Greats Past and Present. This is another book we have at our eBay store. This book came out in 1973, so basically every sports great in here, even if they were present at the time, they're past now. You know, all of them are legends or Hall of Famers in here. Bart Starr, Kareem, Ted Williams, Stan Musial, Dave Bing, Rocket Richard. You know, so there's just kind of a who's who of the sporting world of the 1970s and before. Got quite a few cookbooks that we have in our eBay and Etsy stores as well. This one right here, the Complete Harrowsmith Cookbook. Not to be confused with the Aerosmith Cookbook that still has never seen the light of day. If you're waiting for that one, dream on. And give you a minute to figure that one out. But yeah, this is a heavy book. It's a combination, I believe, of several cookbooks that Harrowsmith put out over the years. They just put them all into one book and put it out. In fact, all 3 is what it says right here. Look at the cover, I would figure that one out. It is kind of heavy, so yeah, there's quite a bit in there for you to check out. Something else we've got quite a few of. Back in the day, implement companies in farm manufacturing and other ag-related products would put out brochures or catalogs. Generally, they gave them out free. They'd have them in racks at the dealerships, or if you went to your state fair, or those of us in the Midwest, we'd go to the Farm Progress show. They used to alternate between Illinois, Indiana, and Iowa. And you'd go around to the various tents. You know, John Deere would have a tent, Alice Chalmers would have one, International, Case, Ford, whoever, and all the smaller companies, seed corn people, livestock equipment people, and they would have these. They would just hand them out to whoever came in, and I got a bunch of these. I got them again at the state fairs and Farm Progress shows, and sometimes just go to the dealership and you'd pick them up. So I got some that are John Deere, like this one here. This is an early 80s edition, 1981 in fact, giving their haying equipment line. But we've got some other ones from John Deere. I think I've got a couple of Case Internationals yet, White Farm equipment, and some smaller manufacturers as well. If you go in again to our eBay store, I've got them listed in there. Massey Ferguson's another one I've got several of yet too. Looking around through here, I think we've got one thing left to show you this time around. I just got this one not too long ago, and just got it listed here in the last couple of days. A Pictorial History of Wrestling. If you like wrestling, be it amateur or professional, or maybe you like both, that's a fascinating book to look at. It goes back into the ancient beginnings of wrestling and goes up until, I think, 1968 is when the book was initially published. And it has tons of pictures, as well as telling about many of the great wrestlers, both amateur and professionals. Some of the names in there that you might recognize, people like Dick the Bruiser, Vern Gagne, Gorgeous George, Jim Londas, Frank Gotch, going way back there. Ed the Strangler Lewis is prominently featured in this book. Lou Thez is in here. So, I mean, there's just anybody who was somebody in the world of wrestling, be it professional or amateur, up through the late 1960s is probably somewhere in that book. So if you're a wrestling fan, or if you know somebody that is, great gift idea right there. And with that, that wraps up our look this time around at some of the interesting vintage items that we have in our eBay store. Once again, I'll have the links to our eBay and our Etsy stores down below, and make sure you hit subscribe so you can keep up with all of our videos as we send them out each week. I'm Mike of Mike and Allie's Vintage eBay and Etsy stores. I hope you have a great week, everyone.